Microsoft Power BI Certification, PL-300, Exam Questions and Answers. Schema to simplify your data. You need to understand the relationship between the tables in the star schema. What is the relationship from a fact table to a dimension table? Option 1, many to many. Option 2, many to 1. Option 3, 1 to many. Option 4, 1 to 1. Correct answers, many to 1. Correct answers, many to 1. Explanation: there is a many-to-one relationship from a fact table and dimension table. For each row in a dimension table there may be multiple matching rows in the fact table. You have the following Power Query M formula that generates a range of dates. Equals list dates, hashtag date, 2020-05-31, 365, hashtag duration, 1000. What is the resulting date range? Option 1. A list of days ending on May 31, 2020 and starting 365 days earlier. Option 2. A list of days starting on May 31, 2020 and ending 365 days later. Option 3. A list of months ending in May 2020 and starting 12 months earlier. Option 4. A list of months starting in May 2020 and ending 12 months later. Correct answers. A list of days starting on May 31, 2020 and ending 365 days later. Explanation: the hashtag date element designates the starting date, 365 designates the duration counter, and hashtag duration, 1000, designates the duration interval in days, so this formula results in a listing of days starting on May 31, 2020 and ending 365 days later. You have a fact table that contains sales data and the following two date columns. Order date. Ship date. Both columns have a relationship to the date column and the calendar table, and DAX measures have been configured to use these relationships for calculations related to order or ship dates. You need to ensure that by default, the calendar table does not filter the fact table, unless it is using a DAX measure that uses these relationships. What should you do? Option 1, disable make this relationship active for both relationships. Option 2, enable apply security filter in both directions for both relationships. Option 3, enable make this relationship active for both relationships. Option 4, set the cross-filter direction to both for each relationship. Correct answers: disable make this relationship active for both relationships. Explanation: you can have multiple inactive relationships between two tables in Power BI datasets. DAX measures can then use the USRLATIONSHIP function to activate a relationship for calculations. Relationship direction is not required for either the relationships or measures to work in this model setup. Only one active relationship can exist between two tables in a Power BI dataset. Applying a security filter in both directions isn't required for this model setup. You need to assign items to a display folder. Which three items can be assigned to a display folder? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Option 1, calculated column. Option 2, column. Option 3, measure. Option 4, report. Option 5, table. Correct answers: calculated column, column, measure. Explanation: tables and reports cannot be assigned a display folder. Columns, calculated columns, and measures can be assigned a display folder. You create a data model in Power BI Desktop that contains DAX calculated columns and measures. You now need to create a report. In which two places can a DAX calculated column be used, but a DAX calculated measure cannot be used? Each correct answer presents a complete solution. Option 1, as a filter in the filters on this page well of the filters pane. Option 2, as a filter in the filters on this visual well of the filters pane. Option 3, as an item in that add drill through fields here well of the visualizations pane. Option 4, as an item in the fields well of a slicer. Correct answers: as a filter in the filters on this page well of the filters pane, as an item in the fields well of a slicer. Explanation: unlike a measure, a calculated column can be used in a slicer to place filter options on the report page. DAX measures cannot be placed in the filters on this page well. They can only be placed per visual, in the filters on this visual well of the filters pane. Both DAX columns and measures may be used as a visual level filter. Both DAX columns and measures can be used in the drill-through well. You need to use DAX quick measures to generate results to use in a report. Which type of DAX quick measure calculations will not work against a direct query table? Option 1, aggregate per category. Option 2, mathematical operations. Option 3, time intelligence. Option 4, X functions. Correct answers, time intelligence. Explanation: time intelligence functions have performance implications and are disabled for quick measures against direct query tables. Mathematical operations, aggregate per category, and X functions are all supported against direct query. You have a Power BI desktop model. You need to determine when to use implicit and explicit measures. What is a feature of an implicit measure that explicit measure does not have? Option 1, end users can change the aggregation type of implicit measure from the values well of a visual. Option 2, implicit measures can be used as a drill-through field. Option 3, implicit measures can be used to create quick measures. Option 4, implicit measures can be used with field parameters. Correct answers: end users can change the aggregation type of implicit measure from the values well of a visual. Explanation: implicit measures can select from one of 9 aggregations when placed in the values well of a visual. Both implicit and explicit measures can be used as a drill-through field to create quick measures and with field parameters. You need to reduce the cardinality of a column in a Power BI dataset. What should you do? Option 1, add a prefix to each value in the column. Option 2, add a suffix to each value in the column. Option 3, replace null values with a value of 0. Option 4, reduce the number of distinct values. Correct answers: reduce the number of distinct values. Explanation: a column that has a lot of repeated values and a low number of distinct values will have a low cardinality. Reducing the number of distinct values reduces cardinality. Replacing nulls does not change the number of distinct values. A static prefix or suffix does not change cardinality. You need to reduce the size of a Power BI model that contains 2 dimension tables named date and location, and 1 fact table named temperatures. The temperatures table contains the following fields: reading time, date key, date. Location key, whole number. Temp C, decimal. You have 1 row for every 5-minute interval for each location. The temperatures table is related to the date and location dimensions by using many-to-one relationships. You need to reduce the cardinality of the table. The solution must ensure that the dataset supports reports that analyze average temperature by hour and location. What 2 actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. Option 1, create a column that contains the time values for the start of the hour of the reading time value. Option 2, disable the query load on the temperatures query in the Power Query Editor. Option 3, remove the rows that occur exactly at 0 minutes and 0 seconds on the hour. Option 4, use the group by functionality to aggregate the rows by hour, date key, and location key and then create an average temp C value per row. Option 5, use the group by functionality to aggregate the rows by date key, reading time, and location key and then create a max temp C value per row. Correct answers: create a column that contains the time values for the start of the hour of the reading time value. Use the group by functionality to aggregate the rows by hour, date key, and location key and then create an average temp C value per row. Explanation: creating a column that displays the hour is necessary to summarize by hour when there is no time or hour dimension. Summarizing the table by using the group by functionality reduces the number of rows. Reporting requirements dictate that the aggregated temperature value should be an average. The table should be summarized by hour, date key, and location key in order to support the required reports. Removing rows that occur exactly on the hour removes data and does not support the reporting requirements. Disabling the query load removes the table from the model completely. You plan to run Power BI Desktop Performance Analyzer.
You need to ensure that the data engine cache will not impact the test results without restarting Power BI Desktop.
What should you do first?
Option 1, add a blank page to the .bix file and select it.
Option 2, connect DAX Studio to the data model.
Option 3, invoke the clear cache function.
Option 4, invoke the refresh metadata function.
Correct answers: connect DAX Studio to the data model.
Explanation: DAX Studio, once connected to the data model, can be used to clear the data engine cache. The clear cache function can be invoked from DAX Studio once you connect it to the data model. The refresh metadata function can be invoked from DAX Studio to update the metadata of the currently selected model. Adding a blank page to the .bix file and selecting it is the first step in clearing the visual cache, not the data engine cache.